If you're like me, about 3 hours ago, you had no clue who Daniel Larson is. And now you're just now realizing that this is a crazy man that doesn't really deserve what he's going through currently. Or maybe he does. That's for you to decide. But I'm going to take you through an entire timeline of Daniel Larson from starting his first social media to literally facing 60 years in prison. Like, dislike, comment, enjoy the ride. First things first, I want to credit the Daniel Larson Wiki, where I have pulled every single piece of information that I have gotten for this talking. First things first, we need to talk about Daniel Larson's upbringing. So, his parents, not necessarily in the picture. He had a very traumatic childhood until he was adopted, kind of, by his grandma/orphanage. He was in this orphanage for some time. This orphanage dealt with special kids. By special, you can kind of cast my drift. We don't know exactly what Daniel Larson is prescribed with or diagnosed with, sorry. But we do know that he is diagnosed with multiple mental disorders. One of them, presumably autism, to a severe extent. Why are we talking about this? Because it makes a lot more sense when we realize what he does later on in the story. Next thing happens, he makes friends with a man named Bob. Bob is a man that decides to take over his caregiving after his grandma, who was at this point extremely elderly, passes away, tragically, unfortunately. After Bob takes him in, Daniel then begins a social media. This social media has varying success until a specific meme allows him to get extreme stardom. This meme was called the fog is coming meme. If you don't know what that is, I don't know how to explain it other than the fog is coming, the fog is coming, the fog is coming. That was basically the joke. That was the meme for a long time. And Daniel Larson connected to this fog meme because his camera was trash. He had a really bad camera. The fog was literally covering his camera. That was the joke for a long time. With this fog era, as we're going to call it, he rose to fame extremely fast through this fog era and doing crazy things, such as his first ever video online was asking a young woman to date him. It was asking a woman to date him. He was so desperate that he turned to TikTok's corners in the back rooms of TikTok to get a girl to date him. What ends up happening after that is we find out a lot of very interesting things about Daniel Larson as he grows. We find out that he has a Pinterest account, or like he likes to call it, a Pinterest account, where he is basically stalking minors. This is not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. He has a lot of not very good pictures about minors. He is liking them. He's interacting with them in a way that he shouldn't do. These things are then passed off because he says that somebody hacked his account. His managers in this situation, which are realistically just trolls on the internet, his managers hacked his account and did these things to him because he shared his password out loud. Not a great thing. Not a great thing to do. But people say that he hacked him, and people kind of just forgive him and forget about it because he's very clearly not actually causing people physical harm. He is doing stuff online, which is not okay in any way, shape, or form. But he's doing stuff that's wrong. Next thing happens is what we call Daniel Larson's headphone era. Why do we call it Daniel Larson's headphone era? Well, we call it his headphone era because he wore comically large headphones for every single video he recorded for a couple of months time span. Wasn't great. Wasn't a great era for Daniel. He was very made fun of during this era, and he had a lot of issues during this era, with the pedo claims still resurfacing once in a while, basically. After this era, he has the adult film incident of May 6th, where basically his managers at the time told him that he was going to try out for an adult film. In this, he says, I'm going to be live trying out for an adult film, and exposes himself on stream. Not a great way to do it, Daniel Larson. Not a great way. Obviously, I can't show this picture of him exposing himself, but it's pretty nasty. It's not something you want to look at all. It's really not something you want to look at. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about is the after this happens, he gets banned, and he goes ahead and makes another account, just like he basically does throughout this entire series. He's constantly making two new accounts as he gets banned for saying whatever he says that gets him banned. I mean, clearly he's mentally pretty unstable at this point, so people know that he is saying things that he doesn't actually mean, so they keep banning him. The next incident that he has is what we are going to call a Grace VanderWaal situation. Who is Grace VanderWaal? Well, I had absolutely no clue until I looked her up. She's a 20-year-old singer slash songwriter slash actress. And at the time when he first initially got involved with Grace VanderWaal, she was very young. And I mean like under 18 young enough to where it becomes creepy when you're a 25-year-old man like Daniel Larson is. Because he gets involved with her, a lot of people resurface all of these pedo claims, okay? It just continues to go over and over and over again in these pedo claims. And then after this, people start really realizing who he is. They realize who he is. They're realizing he's not a great guy. They're realizing maybe these pedo claims were real. And right about around this time, he runs away from all caretakers, from his home, from everything he has. Runs away from everything. It is one of the stupidest decisions that he could possibly make, because he then goes homeless for a long period of time, only living because of the people that are online supporting him. He is known to be making terrible financial decisions during this time, such as going to a specific casino called Black Hawk and gambling away all of his money. Get your laughs out now, because Black Hawk is a funny casino. Next, he goes and relinks with this guy named Bob, who up to this point is realistically the only one caring about him in his real life. He's run away from his caretakers. He's run away from everything and everyone that has ever loved him. He is very clearly on some type of parole from doing multiple crimes on stream. It's just not a good idea at this point. He's homeless. He's at his very rock bottom. And what he decides to do next is hit his biggest benefactor, Bob. He hits Bob. He, on stream, makes it look like he's getting hit by Bob by putting his camera down, facing up, where nobody can see anything, and hits himself over and over again. Just hits himself, bro. Hits himself, acts like Bob has broken his arm, acts like Bob is hurting him, and basically, he hits Bob. Bob calls the police, and then now he has nothing. We're going to flash forward about a year from then. His social media presence at that time is much lower, because he's actually connected to some people that are controlling his social media to some degree. They're keeping him off of social media. At some point or another, he gets back on stream, and this is where we get to the very interesting new stuff that has happened. Daniel Larson goes live on stream, makes a public bomb threat, and then says he's going to unalive someone. That is a very clear threat. That is a very clear chargeable offense, and that's why we're saying that he is going to jail. He's facing up to 65 years in prison, according to the wiki. I have seen people say also that he has been facing closer to 60, but up to 65 years in federal prison is not a very bright outlook for Daniel Larson. I personally would like to talk about my opinions on this now. When you are dealing with someone who is very clearly not in their right mind, and people continue to let them be out in the public by themselves, it is not his fault, but it is the fault of those around him that are in charge of him. There is Bob, who has been basically complacent in this entire thing. There is some of these managers and trolls that have been egging him on throughout the entire timeline of this. There's the people that are supporting him with money, even though he's spending it on the worst possible things. I personally think that though he has a mental disorder, that doesn't necessarily mean that he is free of charge of all of these things. But I do know that this guy does not need to be sent in jail, but he needs to be sent to a mental hospital where he should remain for a very long period of time, to where he is perfectly rehabilitated and not any longer on the internet. With that being said, hopefully this Daniel Larson update was very good for you. Hopefully I explained the timeline very well. If I didn't explain it perfectly, or you're a little hazy on some things, make sure to leave a comment and I can try to address it as best as possible. I'm trying to keep this under 10 minutes, so I will see you B-dubs later.